So, hey guys. So this podcast I'm going to be doing is thank you guys for helping me reach 100,000 followers first and foremost. So that was cool, and I've just been really really busy with everything going on in life, as I'm sure you guys are as well. So it's hard for me to hop on and do these podcasts. I'm hoping 2024 will be a lot better. I could do it once a week. That's going to be the hope. And I'm doing the same thing, going live on Instagram and then recording the pod here. So let's talk about how 2024 is gonna. I believe it could shake up, what to look for, and yeah, we'll see some optimism here and see how we can make some money, right? Okay, so first and foremost, the stock market. Thanks, brother. The stock market has been on a tear from October until now, pretty much, right? And that came as a surprise, shit, even to me, because the data that's coming out doesn't really match the optimism. So where's this optimism coming from? It's now central bankers, peddling this information that, hey, yeah, we could have some rate cuts coming in 2024, and that got everybody hyped, like, oh, get in now, and they're kind of not looking at the actual returns and what would happen if those rate cuts don't happen. So there's a lot to unpack here. I guess what I'll do is I'll break it down, and I'm going to explain it to you guys, or talk to you guys in a way that, I'm going to pretend like you guys have very little knowledge in the financial field, because I kind of want you guys to see the cog of how everything works and why there's a lot of room for things to go wrong. So first and foremost, let's start by talking about inflation in general. So we know that inflation was wild during 2020 and 2021 and even 2022. That's what caused the Fed to raise the rates that they did. Okay. One of the things you have to remember about inflation is there is some things known as sticky inflation. And the best example I could give of sticky inflation is like wood prices. If you're a wood manufacturer in this country and you're shipping wood out and you see that your costs are soaring, right? And you're like, wait a minute, it's costing me more money to get this new stuff in. And then I got to get this old stuff out. I can't lose money on it, air quotes, right? I got to be able to raise those prices. So what happens is you'll see the price of wood go up 3x or 4x or 5x. And that's not because they're greedy capitalists, it's because their costs are going up 2x, 3x, 4x, right? Things got to stay relative. And something like wood, and you could take a bunch of other commodities like this, but I'm using wood because it's literally in everything we do, right? Like in housing and anything you want to build and make, wood is a part of it. Oil is one too, but oil is a lot more political versus wood. When it's here, it's stored, it's with us. Once those new prices for wood set in, historically, it's very, very hard to get those prices to come back down. That price stays at that price level. It means the whole economy as a whole, everybody has to reach up to those prices, right? So one of the problems we're having right now is with inflation is obviously everyone's pockets seem a little bit lighter at the end of the month. And eventually we all start asking ourselves, like, wait a minute, bro, if we're going to survive, I need to get paid more for my job, right? And you got to renegotiate. And there's only so much that your company could do for you before they go belly up. And so that's kind of like the cycle that we're in right now. Is we're in a labor war, a labor wage war right now, to kind of get where we need to be. And it's happening with unions across the country, right? Like the casino workers, truckers that went down, that are saying like, hey, we're part of a bigger company, we deserve a bigger, cut of the pie. That has to play out. And so what we could compare ourselves to is 1970s, 1980s to where we are now. If you look at the 70s, when stuff went really wild, we didn't have control of our energy. So when OPEC, because I wasn't even born then, but read history books and hear people talking about it that lived through it. When we went through an oil embargo in this country, you were literally able to fill your car up depending on the last like numbers of your car, if it was odd or even, right? Like that's what this country went to. We literally could not have enough gas to move product to do what we needed to do. That made everything go up like crazy. And there was a bunch of other problems stemming from that. But that went into, the Reagan era, or towards, the beginning of the Reagan era of 82. But before then, Volcker, when he raised interest rates to like 8%, he was able to do that. Our national debt was not that high. it was under $1 trillion. It's crazy to think about that, right? Literally, what, 40 years later, and our national debt is like 20 something plus trillion or $30 trillion. It's insane. But that also comes at a cost. So when we have to pay interest on that, that's immense. And all the tax dollars that we're collecting, right? It has to go towards those payments. So how can we grow as a country? That's also now a problem of the Federal Reserve and a problem of the government, and they're supposed to be independent. But that's the difference between the 80s and the 70s and the 2020s. We can't afford these higher rates for longer. We really can't. But to think that we're going to have 6 cuts back to back and that nothing is going to change and inflation is going to be, capped, I think that is a freaking very far stretch. And full disclosure, I'm going to be selling off my holdings going into 2024. Real estate that I have that I know I'm like, okay, this is the time to move. I could get rid of it at a 6 cap. I will sell it and just sit on dry powder. I just don't feel confident and comfortable investing in multifamily right now. There's so much uncertainty about where the future is going to hold. Okay, how do we know that if these rates come down now that they're going to stay down? And I could trust me when I tell you this. You could ask your friends, you could ask your family members. Every single person is also waiting on the sideline that missed an opportunity to buy a house or missed an opportunity to sell. They're all stuck and they're all pent up. So a lot of that demand will be released. But I feel like this whole year of 2024 is just going to be like a phony last puff of the cigarette type of year before we have to deal with the real problems. In the short term, if the Federal Reserve comes out and they cut these rates, it's a Biden boost. It really is, because the economy will start going right back up, right? Because we're introduced to that cheap money again. And maybe they could keep that going for 6 to 9 months. But to think that inflation is going to come down to 2 or 3%, that's just absolutely insane. That's not possible in that short amount of time. Now, look, maybe it could be. And if it is, and we have a soft landing and everyone keeps their jobs and everything works out, great. I'm not complaining. Well, it means we're all making money. But I'm also here to be freaking super realistic. And everything I do, I try to do it from a conservative standpoint, more towards the side of what's more likely. Is it more likely that we get under 2% and we get rates down to 5%? Or is it more likely that when they cut, inflation's going to go up and they're going to have to backpedal and either pause or raise again? I think it's the latter. But I think the first half of it is going to be more towards them feeling not just political pressure, but just pressure from everybody saying, hey, we can't afford anything at 9% or 10%. You're going to destroy us. And now they're going to have to play this juggling act of like, well, what is the right, target rate to go after? And then that also leaves me and you, right? If we got like $100,000, couple $100,000 sitting on the sideline and we want to go make an investment opportunity, are we going to evaluate it at 8 caps? Are we going to evaluate it at 6? Like, where's our future going to be? How much risk are we going to be willing to take? And that's part of the problem that a lot of people aren't addressing is like, it's no longer 2020 when you're getting 3%. There's real risk for capital that's being deployed, and some people just don't care. And those are the same people that are going to be in a world of hurt. If you bought 4 or 5 years ago, apartment complex at a 3 cap or a 4 cap, and that's coming up due in 2024, you're probably freaking out. And there's a lot of people like that are freaking out. So, but then again, if these rates cuts come down, if you just skate by, it does save a lot of people. I just feel like the honest truth is I feel like we're just being scammed and kind of lied to and just kind of like pulled along, and we're along for the ride. I mean, me and you as individuals, what can we do? We're at the mercy of the bank. If we want to go get a loan, we want to go get anything done, hey, that's the rate. And that's another question that I want to address is like, well, how does all this affect me? How does this work towards me right now? And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about like how loans are priced. So I just want to clarify that. I put it in a post, but not everybody, reads long captions. So I figure I got this opportunity here. I might as well share it with you guys. So you have the Federal Reserve. They control, the discount rate. That rate is what Jerome Powell comes out and says, hey, we voted to raise a quarter basis points, which is 0.25%, a quarter of a full percent. Or, we decided to raise a whole, basis point, 1 whole percent. And you're kind of just probably thinking like me, and you're like, all right, what does that have anything to do with anything? Well, the way that works is that number is what banks charge each other at the end of the night to loan money to each other to make sure the reserves are met and whatever, right? Okay, cool. But that number also determines the Wall Street Journal prime. which is usually like 3 points, three and a quarter points above what that Federal Reserve rate is. So, for hypothetically, if the Federal Reserve rate is 5%, then the Wall Street Journal Prime will probably be at like eight and a quarter. So, why is the Wall Street Journal Prime number so important to us as investors? Because that is the number that banks are going to use to loan to us. They're going to add 1.25% to whatever that Wall Street Journal Prime number is. And then that's the number that me and you get to borrow money at. Now, there's also a couple of caveats to that. Like, for example, there is a way that you get below that, and that's, your negotiating power with the bank. And a lot of people don't know this. If you're not in real estate, if you're not into like deal making and you don't really have a relationship with the bank, you're going to take what they give you. But if you go talk to your banker and you need a little bit of cash on hand to be able to do this, well, let's say the Federal Reserve rate's at 5, Wall Street Journal is 3.25, so you're at 8.25%, and then 1.25% is their profit, so you're borrowing at 9.5%. And the banker might say, hey, 9.5, that's the best I could do, right? Well, wrong. What you could tell them is there's a bunch of other options you could do. You say, hey, how about I park a couple $100,000 in your bank in a 6-month CD? So the bank is going to raise their eyebrows like, okay, on top of whatever you're doing here in cash, you're going to park 200,000. We'll pay you 5% on that 200,000 for 6 months, a year, whatever. And also, since you're parking that money with us, because remember, when you give the money to the bank, they get to lend that out. They make it to make money, right? So they're happy about that. Then you could use that as leverage and say, hey, bring down, instead of me paying 9.5, give me 9%. So it's a win-win for both sides, right? You're giving the bank something. The bank gets a $250,000, 200,000 to go lend. They make money. They help you save money on the back end, and you're getting paid interest on that 200. So that's like one of the ways that you could, structure a deal to kind of get you somewhat of a leg up on your competition here. Obviously, the big dogs that have millions of dollars parked in the bank, they're probably going to get it at like 8%. They're still going to have a huge advantage on us, but they're also not going after the type of deals that me and you are going after, right? It's a totally big difference when you're going after a $2 million deal versus a $10 million deal, right? It's a different ball game. It's different leveraging tools you get to use, whole different conversations you're going to have, right? You're probably going to need a little bit more cash in. So that's kind of how the Federal Reserve, so I'll repeat for anyone that joined or if you kind of dozed off during the pod. So the Federal Reserve sets their benchmark interest rate, and that is what banks change at the end of the night for themselves. That plus 3.25% is what the Wall Street Journal Prime number is. That plus 1.25 is what we pay. So that's that. And then mortgage rates are usually tied to the 10-year treasury. So whatever the 10-year treasury is, it's that, I think, plus like a point is what you're gonna be paying for like a house. And yeah, it's just gonna be so interesting to me see how all of these scenarios are gonna play out. And at what point are we as investors going to be able to jump back in? I know a lot of us have dry powder. A lot of us are waiting to get into a deal, but we also are so scared and we're nervous, and you should be. And look, there's never going to be a deal that you do in your life that you're not nervous about, that you're not like quadruple checking. If you are doing it, I probably tell you, don't do it. You probably haven't done enough, but eventually we are going to have to jump in. Eventually we are going to have to pull the trigger on something. And for me, my general rule of thumb, I just wouldn't buy anything less than whatever interest rate that I'm negotiating for the next 5 years, because the way commercial loans work is you're fixed for either 3, 5, or 7 years, depending on what you want it to take. And there's a bunch of other little things that you could do to, protect yourself. Like you could have swaps in there and you could pay for that up front to get that rate. But for the regular people like us, we're going to be fixed rate for 3, 5, or 7 years. I try to go for at least a 5-year fix. And I just wouldn't feel comfortable buying any business or any type of property if I knew I couldn't float that cap rate at that. You know what I mean? If I'm paying the bank 8 or 9%, I'm buying the property at 8 or 9%. I'm just not going to take that risk. And there's a lot of people out there that probably will make a lot more money than I ever will, that will go in and buy it at like a 6 cap and say, I'll take the risk because I know everything in 5 years is going to work out. That's great. More power to you. I'm just not comfortable taking on that risk, right? I'm still in the developing stage of it. So, that's a quick economic outlook, and really, I mean, I'd be lying if I told you, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. I don't know. There's really two scenarios, and you got to do your own homework to figure out what you think. Of course, you can listen to people that have opinions and stuff, but at the end of the day, you got to think for yourself. And the two scenarios that we could point out right now is, hey, everything goes perfect, and the Fed, does the six cuts, and we bring rates back down to around 6.5 to 7%, and everyone's all happy, and we, ride off into the sunset. Or the realistic thing is they do a little, and this is what I think is going to happen. They're going to do some cutting, and that's when I would be selling everything I possibly could, because I know inflation is going to creep back around, and then they're going to have to raise again, and then you'll be able to re-enter with a better chance of buying something at a better rate. That's my opinion on it. So that being said, you know, it's not stopping me from doing deals. So I'll break down, the car wash deal that we're doing right now. I plan on launching more and more content, about the car wash and everything that we're doing, um, as the journey continues. So, where we are right now, in that phase is we submitted our loans for a complete rehab, and our complete rehab on this is going to be about 1.8 million. So to recap, we bought this car wash for about 1.2. We got it appraised. It came back appraised at 1.4 as is. So we got pretty lucky. We made a couple hundred on the top. And we'll be doing 1.8 million in total construction. That's all new equipment in the tunnel. That's vacuums. The self-serve is going to be completely done. All new pay stations, all the bells and whistles. And our after repair value came in at 4,990,000, pretty much $5 million. And me and my partner, we're the ones that did all the legwork. We did the feasibility study ourselves. When we acquired it, we then went to all the car washes in a 5-mile radius that we're selling. We got all of their financials. We put that together. We made our projections, and we put that whole packet together when it came and got an appraisal. And that's another gem for you guys there, is when you guys are doing these types of deals for yourself, whether it's a multifamily ad, whether it's a car wash like we did, whatever it is that you're into or you're doing, you need to do the feasibility study yourselves. And all a feasibility study is like, hey, who are we? What are we doing? What are we buying? How much we're buying it for, and what's our value add going to be, and how much, and why is this going to add value, right? If you put all that together, beautifully done, it's a little bit of work, but it's not impossible to do. You send that over to your appraiser, and you meet them out there, and you say, hey, look, we're buying it. This is our plan. This is what we got. And you do all the legwork for them. They're going to be jumping up and down for joy, saying, wow, this guy did all the work for me. Yeah, you know what? Looking at all the other data and everything they collected, yeah, if they do what they say they're going to do, then it should come appraised at this level. And so that's like really the unlocking of capital, because then you could take it back to a lender and say, hey, look, we bought it at this price. This is the money we need to put in to rehab it. And this is where the value is going to be after. And every bank will look at that value after, and they'll say, wow, okay, we'll be able to loan to you on that amount on the high end. And, for this car wash, we're coming in below 50%. I mean, end completed project, our value should be 5 million. And all in on loans and everything will be, I think, levered up like 2.5, 2.6 at the most. So we'd have 50% loan to value. Any bank is going to be willing to take that on. So it's a pretty good way to go about, structuring your deals and being able to really extract that value. It is a long and rigorous process. I know I'm making it sound like, oh, super easy. Like, oh, this is all you do. This whole project took us 5 months to get off the ground, having to go through, the SUP process and getting everything done, which I'll talk a little bit about that right now. So when we bought this, and here's the kicker, when we bought this, the gentleman had a tunnel on it. He had a self-serve, and that's it. No vacuums, no nothing. And this had been a car wash for 50 plus years. Well, we got it under contract. We put our deposit down. We're all excited. And then we find out that the property that it's under has been rezoned. It's commercial, but that category of zoning won't allow us to operate a car wash under it. So we were like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? We found ourselves in a pickle. We're not going to be able to get our money back. Like, this place is going to get demolished, you know? So no, you just, you know, we went in there, we talked to the city, and they said, okay, there's a whole process you have to go through. It's called the SUP, a special use permit. And of course, for us, we were like, this is kind of ridiculous. Like, well, I had a call coming in. I was like, this is kind of ridiculous. It's been a car wash for the last 50 years. Why are you guys making us go through this process? Well, a part of the reason is they wanted to take control back of the city. They wanted to issue these permits on a per use basis and be able to hold that over your head in case you weren't, you know, holding your site to a certain standard. They'd be able to pull that permit. So it's kind of like a little power play for them. But, you know, we went through the process. We filled out the application. There's a couple of things that you have to do as you go through it. Like, you have to send a letter to all the people in a 1 mile radius in the businesses. You got to let them know. Then you have a meeting with the economic board. You present your case, and then they vote on it. Once they vote, then it goes to the city council. Then the city council votes on it. And if you get that passed, then you'll get your permit. And then that's just for you to start doing your work. So that delayed us about a solid 2.5, 3 months. But we got that done. And now we're ready for the next phase. So the next phase is we submitted everything for our documentation and everything, and we're going to be breaking ground. And, first things first is we're adding about 20 vacuum drops. Then we're going to be reconstructing the whole self-serve, and then we'll be reconstructing the whole tunnel. And you guys will be around for the whole process. You know, I'll be out there, you know, shooting videos and letting you guys know, what we're doing and what we're learning. And, that's one project that we have going into 2024. And midway through 2024, I'll be opening another fund, to probably do another wash. But we want to get this one done, completed, get it completely off the ground. And, we'll go from there. So it's in Dallas. We're in a city called Balch Springs. So when will the first video drop? Hopefully, first video. So if we get everything approved, we'll start construction in March. So I have a little snippet up on my page right now, and that snippet is just shows the wash that we bought, and it kind of just like highlights it. And but there's a lot to be done, ahead. And for the rest of 2024, man, if you guys have been sitting patiently on the sidelines for 2023, I do think 2024 is going to give us a lot of opportunity to jump in. I think we could all benefit. And don't forget, and this is something that needs to be highlighted because I haven't had a chance yet to do a video on the food manufacturer that we were going to buy. That's a whole video in itself, and I could share everything I learned during that process. But guys, 2024, 2025, 2026, all the way until the end of the 2030s. There's going to still be a big transfer of wealth. Everybody that is, 60, 65 years old right now, pushing into the early 70s or their mid 70s, pushing into the 80s, they're going to be looking to sell their boring businesses. They're going to be looking to sell their car washes, their coin operated laundries, their mechanic shops, their whatever the heck it is that they've had for the last 40, 50 years that's fed them really well because their kids don't want it, or their kids are doing something else. And, if we don't buy it, it's just going to go under, or they're just going to walk away. Those opportunities are going to be available. And in my opinion, to anyone listening or anyone that watches this in the future, is just keep your eyes open for those opportunities, because those are really going to be the game changers that's going to allow you to build your cash flow. And then your cash flow is going to allow you to continue to invest and make your millions. I would never discount those ever. I just would try to put myself in a position where I would be the first person to be able to have that conversation. And how do you do that? I talked about it in multiple videos. It's being involved in your community, right? Go to your church, talk to your pastor, talk to your local, community organizers. Hell, talk to your aunts, your uncles, your cousins. Ask them if they know anyone that's willing to sell a business that they currently own. You will be surprised how far your little network goes and how everybody is, connected. You just got to start reaching out and making that awkward phone call. And a lot of people can't get over that, right? A lot of people, they want to be business people, they want to be entrepreneurs, but they can't get over making that first phone call because they're too embarrassed about what someone's going to think, right? They're too embarrassed. Like, oh, if I call my Uncle Joe, who's been in the, whatever, they've been in the auto repair shop business forever. If I call him and say, hey, I've got some money on the side, I would love to do what you're doing. Do you know anyone that's willing to sell? They don't want to hear the ridicule or have them talk about them. But if you have that attitude already, you're already going to be defeated. And you got to change that about yourself. You got to be willing to put yourself out there and take slack from people. Let the people talk, man. Like, this Instagram page was a prime example. I mean, I got to 100,000 followers now, but when I first started, I remember how hard it was to get to 1,000 followers. And I remember I was getting trolled then, like, oh, who's this guy think he is? Like, I'm still nobody, or I'm still growing. I'm still trying to do stuff, But if I would have gave up and just folded, barely at 1,000, I would never be able to be where I am right now in front of you guys, right? And the same thing is going to, go for you and your venture. You got to be able to stand up and just go talk. You got to be willing to go talk to people in order to get those opportunities. Otherwise, they're never going to come to fruition. But yeah, hey, look, this is all I have right now for the pod. I just wanted to do a quick one. I'm going to be out of town for the next month pretty much, but I'm hoping, towards the end of January, I can stay consistent and make one of these, once a week. So, thanks for tuning in and thanks for helping me reach 100,000. Now I'm going to go on IG Live and answer a couple of questions and then I'm pretty much done for the day. Happy holidays, guys. Thanks.